from the Salvation Army National Headquarters, this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley, broadcasting from my office here at National Headquarters, the Salvation Army National Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a beautiful pre-autumn afternoon. When we're recording this, we're not quite to autumn, but we're almost there. And if you've been a faithful listener, you'll know that autumn is my favorite season of the year. I believe it is also one of the four favorite seasons of our editorial director, my co-host, my right and left hand in our publications office, Mr. Jeff McDonald.
Greetings, Colonel. Tomorrow is the fall equinox.
It's a fall equinox, but I think when this broadcast hits the air, fall would have already been
good point.
in kind of in motion.
Yes.
Because this is episode number 55. And today we're doing an overview of the October 2020 version of the war cry. I am so glad that we don't have to say 2020 very much longer. We're getting close. We're almost at the end of this notorious and a year for us all to forget, the year 2020. And isn't that so? Our wonderful producer is here again with us, making this all come alive. Elizabeth, greetings to you. Happy 2020 to you, Elizabeth.
Greetings and woot woot. I can't believe it's almost 2021. I'm flabbergasted every day.
I'm just kind of hoping that when 2021 comes, that 2020 will have just been like my eyesight of yesteryear, and not a painful reminder of what we had to go through this past year worldwide. All of us. It was a unique time, wasn't it?
Oh man, I mean, the retrospectives even scare me. That will come out about this year. It's one of those high points in the bar chart for all these things that people have endured. And of course, the fall season brings new challenges, especially for the Army.
Yes, we have some of those challenges. We're going to talk about a few of those today, but we're focusing on the October issue of the War Cry. I believe this is issue number 6 that we have produced. Our wonderful team has produced remotely. We've actually produced 7 issues because we just sent the Christmas 2020 issue of the War Cry to the printers and getting that all laid out. Jeff, your team's done an amazing thing. And the great thing is we have a wonderful, obviously we have kind of like two sides. We have the editorial side and we have the designer side. And what I've really enjoyed lately in the last several weeks, Jeff, is your design crew continues to just do some amazing work. And they have so many different wonderful ideas. Why don't you give our listeners a little behind the scenes look at kind of, how your design team works?
I know people who see magazines don't understand, nor need they understand all the work that goes in behind the scenes. But we are our design team's continually looking at software and how best to apply it, but also continually reviewing and updating our design principles, everything from use of fontography to the template we use for our grid so that we make things readable. We've been lately stressing entry points in content so readers can have easy access to what we're presenting. And of course, we strive for excellence and beauty in our work, and aesthetic appeal, all to get the message home. And I must say our designers are really committed to that mission. And we find the smallest detail well used makes a huge difference. I mean, just on the cover of this issue, the subhead text on the cover, Hollywood duo put faith and family first. Well, we wrestled with that. The first use of the font was a little difficult to read, but we wanted to give it a Hollywood feel. So we're always trying to provide the editorial focus and interpret that in a design savvy way. also, the design team has stressed recently our need to open up our content more, to give more room for design, for creativity, so that readers can stop and appreciate the message being conveyed both visually and through reading. So I'm very proud of our team.
They have a lot of ideas on the drawing board, and they're anxious to make a lot of changes. And I've kind of had to not pull the stops out and say, put the brakes on and say, "Whoa, hold on," but let's time some of those changes, because sometimes too much change can be too good of a thing, really, in when it comes to design.
That's true, and they say that a magazine really provides coherence in an otherwise confusing world. So you don't want to introduce so many designs that are jarring. But but you worked on the cover with our design team for this issue in particular.
Yeah, and we'll see if our listeners and our readers. I don't want to point out the significant change on it, but it is a big one. It's actually a change that we made at the beginning of this year in January. Well, I'll go ahead and say it, but we are the official magazine of the Salvation Army in the United States. Each of the 4 territories have their own publications, and we honor those, and we try to complement theirs. But we at national headquarters report kind of on a broader scale than the territories do. And the War Cry is in its 140th year of publication in the United States, and we're very proud of that fact. So we made a little slight change. We moved that title from the top down to the bottom, and just kind of had it bleed naturally into the rest of the print. But I just love working with our designers. We appreciate every one of them, and what I like, Jeff, is that COVID hasn't truncated our creativity.
Isn't it amazing how this remote working environment has actually heightened our focus? We're so tuned in online. We're collaborating through Microsoft Teams, email, Twitter, tweets, etc., and just really helping us to keep our primary goals in mind.
This work takes there's a lot of collective sort of thing, but I would say for the most part, it's the work of the designers and the editorial team is solitary in nature. I mean, you have to kind of come up with the seed thought when you're germinating an idea for for verbiage for the essay, or for the written side. And then the designers take that seed thought and they run in all kinds of different directions. And it's just simple things in life that excite me. But I really, really kind of just love what your team's doing right now with the look.
Behind the scenes, our staff, Michelle Casares in particular, reached out to the PenaVegas and worked with them to get the original photos and set up the interview. And the other designers, worked on the content to present it in a dramatic fashion. So that kind of build-up. And I think the important point here, though, Colonel, is that I know you stress collaboration in your work. And I find invariably that my ideas are always influenced for the better when we collaborate, when we join our thoughts together. So as an editorial and design team, we come together and think about our intention, try to devise ways of presenting it well. And I think that collaboration is reflected in our publications. So I appreciate that.
And it's sort of like you have to kind of massage this whole thing too, because you have to kind of keep the needs of the readers in mind. And it is true. As we age, we like to keep things, the way they are. We often have some discussions about that. We recently had a discussion that sometimes I get a little jarred when one of my favorite apps on my phone, all of a sudden they change their logo. And it's like, where did it go? Because it's different colors, has a different font. And it's like, oh, well, let's just make a whole new thing. We're kind of used to, things kind of staying static for a long time. So you have to be sensitive to that. You don't want to make change for the sake of change, but things do change, and readers' habits have changed, and our attention spans are changed. And there's there's so many different layers to it. So I'm kind of always thinking on that level, and our team is thinking on the technical sides that there is in their discipline. And you always navigate us through those kind of discussions in a really, really good way.
Yeah, so that creative enterprise is just so very exciting, and we just hope that readers sense something of that as they look at the magazine.
So on the cover, you'll see this lovely young couple that live in Hawaii and who are big fans of the Salvation Army. But many of our readers, especially I would say, Jeff, probably those that are like 35 and younger, can resonate to Carlos and Alexa PenaVega. I know that Michelle was so excited, and Elizabeth, you were part of the podcast and the interviewing of the PenaVegas as well. Could you tell our listeners a little bit, like in case anybody is 35 and older and doesn't know who they are, who are they?
Oh my gosh. So Carlos is a member of the award-winning group Big Time Rush, also from the TV show Big Time Rush. Carlos, he's awesome. And then he's married to Alexa Vega, who was in Spy Kids and Sleepover, amongst many other wonderful things. And together, they have been in lots of movies and were even on Dancing with the Stars.
And what was it like for you as a you watched them as a child growing up? What was it like for you to partake in that interview with them?
I was just so starstruck and tripping over my words, fumbling around.
But you and Michelle put together
Yes.
something very cohesive.
Thank you.
And we have a great podcast with them coming out later in the month.
Yes.
And we have in the middle, starting on page 24, we devoted 4 pages to them.
Mm-hmm.
And Michelle did a great job kind of bringing the interview into the text component.
Right, and Joshua Morales and Ashley Shana worked on the design in collaboration with Michelle. And that, the text on page 25 is a case in point. Now, we don't normally run a bold, long paragraph of text like that, but that's a kind of entry point that we are trying to provide our readers so that they can quickly access the information and find it easy to read.
And specifically, we've recently heard from some of our readers who have dropped us some nice notes of encouragement, saying that they've noticed some of the subtle changes, some of the relevant and the contemporary look. You even had one of our authors, Bob Hostetler, wrote a nice letter making him, thanking us for making him look good. his word.
Right. Yeah, and he has a keen eye, so that's those are good words to hear.
Yeah.
We love feedback.
We do. We can't stress that enough. And, obviously we open the door for feedback, positive, negative. We take the negative. We understand, we're human. We make mistakes. This isn't artificial intelligence kind of pushing this thing out every month. There's a staff of human beings working on it. So, there's differing opinions even within our own staff. Sometimes we publish something and we all have different opinions about it. But the positive feedback that we get just energizes us so much, and we like to drop those little positive things into our magazine. So maybe if you send us some feedback on the warcry.org, or you send us something snail mail, the mailing address is in the magazine. Who knows? We might put your little comments in our editorial section, or Elizabeth's really good about dropping some of that stuff online on our web page as well.
Which is a really good point, because the design encompasses the website as well as the print. So we're looking at things digitally as well as in the two-plane environment of the magazine.
We want to just talk real briefly that we're kind of focusing on this in the November issue, but it's already out, and I think our listeners will know if they're savvy at all. There is a big push right now because there's a huge concern as the need for the Salvation Army, in particular at Christmas time, is rising, probably to heights that we've never seen and we probably could have never predicted. But Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about this idea of Rescue Christmas that's circulating about?
Well, we can't overestimate the challenges the Salvation Army is facing in the field as the holidays approach. These folks on the front lines have been responding to the pandemic by amping up their partnerships with community organizations, companies, etc., and treating people in need who might need help with food or rental assistance or a myriad of things and the Army's really stepped out to help. At the same time, there is a new environment in our culture where access to the Salvation Army iconic kettle is more limited than it has been in the past for various reasons. People want to be open to all solicitations. They don't want to favor one or the other. But the Army, of course, is an iconic tradition, part of the American Christmas tradition. So the Army needs to look for new ways to advance its ministry and its fundraising efforts during the holiday season, because it uses that ingathering at that time throughout the year to impact millions of individuals. So the theme of Rescue Christmas is what the call is the Army is putting out now. And that's not to mean, I know Colonel Foley, you pointed out, this is not to put undue burdens on those local Corps officers who are already pushed to the max in meeting their responsibilities and their ministry outreach, but to also encourage the public to consider what it means to assist others through the Salvation Army ministries at this time of year going toward Christmas.
Even my dad sent me a text the other day saying, "What's this with kettles coming out?" And I was like, "Well, hold on, Dad. A lot of this is kind of a virtual rollout, and it's to get a jump on the season and just to kind of get the Salvation Army out there, because we're kind of faithfully doing a lot of this work on so many different levels. And gosh, just all the wildfires out west and all the hurricanes and the flooding in the south and all the COVID response and on and on it goes. Sometimes the Salvation Army becomes invisible in communities. We just kind of do the job. So we're going to do our part in this issue and the next issue in particular to celebrate and to salute and to encourage the work that's being done through the Salvation Army through our Christmas efforts. Jeff, our magazine goes to many prisoners across the country. And we're not going to get into a debate about the prison systems and justice and all of that sort of thing. We just make sure that this magazine gets, I think we send somewhere around 100,000 copies of the War Cry. It could be even more, to prisons across the country.
Yeah, we're mailing to over 550 correctional institutions in the U.S. And of course, the Army has such a deep tradition of prison ministry, helping those who are incarcerated, both when they are incarcerated and after the fact as they try to reintegrate into society. The Army has a really great ministry there. And of course, that's the call of the gospel. One of Jesus's key statements is to visit the prisoner and care for them. We find that audience to be very receptive and thankful for what the War Cry brings to them, for inspiration and insight and path to new ways of living. So, we do that routinely, and I know that many Salvation Army locations around the country also bring the War Cry to prisons and have a strong prison ministry. So we're very happy to support that as one part of the Army's overall outreach to correctional institutions.
We have a great article celebrating the work of Major Ed Tutwiler from the Central Territory, and this was submitted by Cameron Courtney Matson, the communications manager of the Metropolitan Division in Chicago. There's a great 4-page spread of what the Central Territory is doing within the prisons in that particular area. So we salute again everybody that's involved and thank God for their work.
We should note too that he points out he sees, these people through his years of prison ministry. He's seen remarkable transformations. So there's so much hope and impact that we're making to that community.
Yeah, we probably should have a whole podcast about what Salvation Army is doing with prison ministries now, which is interesting. Obviously, I think in yesteryear we were doing a lot more than we do now, but I'm a strong advocate for ministry in prisons. In 2 appointments, and my wife and I were at, I had a weekly Bible study in one place and Sunday services in another. So it's a little different when you go inside the prison walls and when you're face to face with human beings. And there's an opportunity to bring a message of hope and God's love in those kind of settings, which is it's very unique, and it's not an opportunity that everybody gets in the Salvation Army, but when you get that opportunity, I think it changes you for the good in a lot of different ways. We're continuing on with our influencer section. This has been a real big positive hit, Jeff. I'm really glad that we started this, and we're working in some great new directions with this whole idea in 2021. And Major Swain's been doing a really good job with this. This issue we have Christopher McGowan, who is the Communications and Donor Relations Director in the Kentucky-Tennessee division. So that's kind of an interesting quick read.
It is, and that's a great introduction to the column, Colonel, that you made with this idea. That's really powerful. And he says in his answers, knowing that what I do is directly and inextricably tied to the greatest commandment and the Great Commission is what drives him to excel.
There's so many different layers in the Salvation Army. It's and I use the word disciplines. I mean, we're a particular discipline, but within a division of the Salvation Army, you have your development team that gets out and tells the Army story to people that can have the means to support the Salvation Army now and in the future. And we're indebted to those men and women who, go out and tell the story. And for us, it's important for us to give them, substance in the stories. And, we could probably talk forever and a day on that, but we hope our readers will appreciate and listeners will appreciate what we're doing with that little kind of one-page thing, kind of introduce you to all kinds of different people, whether they're an officer, whether they're an employee, whether they're a soldier. We have, I think, a couple of National Advisory Board members, local community people coming up. So we're going to continue on with that story. We have, Jeff, there's an interesting article, too, in the magazine that listeners would probably just kind of how things work in the editorial world. On page 28, we have an article seeing clearly through multiple sclerosis. I think I got that right. MS. We had that article slated to go, I believe it was in the May issue, and we bumped it to here.
Yeah, and it certainly fit. We tried to focus on the theme of character in our features in this issue. And certainly this profile of Becky and the impression she makes on people fighting MS, but never letting it drag her down. Her commitment to being a light and to other people is what that article is about. And of course, Colonel, would you think that character is an important topic for this day and age, the time that we're in?
Well, I like the writer near the end of the article talks about Becky as a ray of light in a world gone dark. She stands as a resounding counterpoint to nihilism and narcissism that has infiltrated our culture. She shows us that there is power in gratitude. She reminds us always to count our blessings before we take stock of our burdens. I mean, boy, if that doesn't preach, I don't know what else would. And so this is a delightful short read on a beautiful woman who has suffered greatly, and a family that has surrounded her, which I think our readers will be touched by this, because we know that many of our readers are suffering from physical ailments themselves, or they know somebody who is, and we hope that this will give, um, kind of that idea of courage, and the resolve of one's character.
Right. And, we referred to the hard work that goes into our magazines and work earlier, but there's a secret there. And really, this work is extremely fun. And we get to pick out diamonds from the acres of diamonds that are out there in stories, that the armies engage with around the country. So we love to hear those stories, and we love to present them.
Yeah, it's and you've been doing this. I like to kid with you a little bit. I mean, but you've been doing this a long time, and each month you bring a whole fresh vision in your direction of the magazine. And I think the day that this stops being fun is the day that we just fold up our tents and go home. I mean, it is fun. It is a blessing. We are so grateful to be able to tell the stories. I just wish, Jeff, we could print every story that we hear, or every submission that we have, contribution that people have. But we only have so many pages, and we only have so much money, and that's just kind of how it is.
Right, right. But boy, the field out there is ripe. And, we do work, but it's God who gives the increase. So we pray that God uses our work for his glory.
We are making a very intentional kind of, I guess it's me is on this campaign of intentional effort to discover new writers. And when I mean new writers, I don't necessarily mean just young folk or old people, or people within the Salvation Army, or whatever. But we give an opportunity for people within our organization and outside of it to be a part of our storytelling. And Jeff, we've made it very, very clear in this issue of the War Cry what it is that we're looking for in 2021. And we are already in the preliminary stages of lining out January 2021's issue. So you've done a great job here. You and I talk about these themes. I like to do it in a collaborative way with the team. And I mean, we could just come up with simple themes like love, hate, gossip, greed, gluttony, all that. But you have really laid out a nice presentation on pages 18 and 19 about the themes and how to go about processing. Is there anything you want to add to what you've written here?
Well, we're not, we hope these incite people, not incite people, but we hope that these themes trigger some thoughts in people that they can think of how they can contribute to our publications by focusing on these topics. And we do try to make the topics germane to the experience, the current climate that we're in. At the same time, we're not bound by the theme, so we are open to submissions in general as well. But our idea is just to spark creative thought and people in the field thinking, well, you know what? I know this story that really personifies that theme. And readers need to know about it. So that's why we put that out there. And we do have straightforward ways for people to submit online to us, and that information's here as well.
Well, Jeff, before we conclude today, we have a couple more fun things. We continue to carry on with the tradition of having a crossword. Folks enjoy our crossword puzzles. We hear a lot of good things about our recipe section, which we have been working this past year with Kelly Minter. And there's a delightful BLT Towers menu here for you to consider, Jeff. I think it would be good. for you to work on that menu for us here and share with Elizabeth and myself.
Yeah, I should. I don't know if I can pull off the presentation as well as Kelly, though. Hers is very neat. I can't say I'm very neat in the kitchen.
There's just some little trivial stuff in here, a little quiz, and we have the Salvation Army appearing in movies in the past. Major Swain's done a little historical ditty there. Of course, we all know about Guys and Dolls, but there's some other stuff there as well, which is always kind of fun.
Yeah. And your spiritual formation page, another column that you've introduced in the magazine, is strong this time, dealing with silence. There's an image of somebody listening, and there's no headphones in the ear or Bluetooth receiver. They're listening instead to what's above.
We really enjoy our staff member, Carrie Nemeth, who she is one of the main editors on the Christian education side. Her and Carolyn Bailey really work hard on our core cadet material. And, our readers don't see our youth discipleship programs unless they're involved in it. They have children or they might be a core cadet leader in the Corps. But Carrie is in the process of finishing her doctorate in spiritual formation and just has a great voice. And it's been a privilege to have her, along with Major Nancy Helms this past year, contribute to this particular section of the War Cry. It's small but mighty, and we appreciate her work, what she has to share there. Well, we encourage you to know that the War Cry is free online at www.thewarcry.org. Elizabeth does a good job working with our outside vendor to make sure that we get that issue that goes live, usually on the first day of the month. Sometimes there's glitches that happen with it, which is normal, but for the most part, it's there for you. You can subscribe to the War Cry, just a mere $1 a magazine. That's like one cup of coffee nowadays. But you could support the War Cry. We don't talk about that an awful lot, Jeff, but we really do appreciate our individual subscribers and our donors to the magazine.
Oh, man, do we ever. We're so glad for their support and their interest in this ministry.
There's a whole other kind of theme and track that we're approaching when it comes to our circulation down the road. I think some of our listeners and readers will appreciate and see some of the new adventures that we're going to be trying to push with getting the magazine out. We hope that you become an ambassador of the War Cry, that you don't just kind of go, just know that there's a lot of folks that are working hard and praying over each issue and want this to be a relevant tool for you to use in your efforts to share the gospel and the good news that Jesus Christ does save and does care and can make a whole world of difference in your life. But we're committed to that message here at the War Cry at National Headquarters and our Programs and Publications Department and our team. We put our 1,000% effort in each issue, and we hope you all appreciate it. Well, that's going to end this episode of the Fight for Good podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to follow the War Cry at thewarcry.org and Peer Magazine at peermag.org. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I think we're also in Pinterest, maybe. I don't know. There's a few of you out there, right, Elizabeth?
There is a War Cry Pinterest account, but no Peer.
There's no Peer, but there is a War
Peer.
Cry.
Yes.
So pin your things to Pinterest. I have a Pinterest account and I follow model trains, but I don't know what I'm doing on it. So I'm there though. Anyways, All right. Well, we hope you have a great month of October. Thanks for reading the War Cry. Thanks for giving a few minutes today of your time to give us a listen. And until next time, this has been the Fight for Good podcast. Bye for now.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.